Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 6 Things That We Learned from Bradford City 1 at Barrow Afc 2. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for us. If you could try and 80 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are now on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so and it does massively help out. Get a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below your thoughts on the 6 things that we do go on to talk about in today's video. I am once again joined by Frank, and we start out then with one of only 2 green boxes in today's episode. It's a green box for Alex Gilliard, obviously a natural central midfielder, or has been over the last couple of seasons, starting out as a right winger, played the majority of the game though at left back, especially in that second half, and I thought he did a really good job. In my opinion, my man of the match, and I actually think he's been one of our best performers at left back so far this season. I know he's had a couple of games at left wing back, but to play at left back in a natural back four, I thought was really impressive from Gilliard. The way he picked up the ball, he drives forward with it, he can go left or right. He had a couple of shots in there, and it's nice to see Gilliard actually shooting, because when he does take shots, they actually do cause a bit of trouble. You know, his 2 goals so far this season have both been from outside the box, and they've been 2 really nice finishes. He came close and a bit unlucky on a few occasions as well, but the fact that he's a right winger converted into a central midfielder by trade, and now he's playing at left back, I actually think he's been our best performer so far this season in that role. So big credit to Gilliard, certainly my man of the match yesterday. And whilst there wasn't really much creativity, I thought he was certainly someone who was trying to drive us forward, and obviously we know the quality that he brings. He's very energetic, which I think certainly is going to suit Graham Alexander's system, and maybe going forward he could be the man. For whatever reason, Lewis Richards hasn't been favoured by a number of caretaker managers, and now Graham Alexander over the last couple of weeks or so. So I'm not really too sure what's going on with him, because in the games I've seen him, I certainly think he is our best natural left back in that position. But Gilliard, for me, I thought had a really impressive game yesterday, so that's why I'm going to have to go with another green box. I think he's certainly someone who has very impressed me so far this season. We've spoke about it previously, that obviously I was a little bit disappointed to see him get offered a new contract at the football club, but he's certainly won me over this season. I think he has been one of our better performers, and like I said, that's why I've had to go with a green box.
Yeah, completely agree. I think he's one of the most underappreciated, underrated footballers at Bradford City at the moment. And, you know, one thing you can't put past him is that he gives 110% every single game. You know, he's got a fantastic engine on him. And I think it's such a valuable player to have when you've got players that can play in multiple positions and be as versatile and have a tank like Alex Gilliard does. You know, played right mid, right wing when he's first fell at Bradford City on loan from Newcastle, and came in as a centre mid under, I think it might have been Derek Adams, and obviously we know he can play right back, and now he's playing left back. And I think whatever position you put him in, he always seems to give 110% and drop a casual 6, 7 out of 10 performance, and maybe even do better. And I think is one of the very few positives we can take out the game. Obviously, it's not often that you get 2 injuries to the same position in the same game, and having to sub a player back off. Oyegoke, I thought, did pretty well when coming on after 10 minutes, and Alex Gilliard obviously had a massive task on his hands to try and shut down the Barrow wingers and hold that back line a bit, which was very weak. I thought gave away 2 really sloppy goals, and he had to kind of stabilise it a bit, and I thought he did a pretty good job at doing that, and offered a lot attacking wise as well. Bombed up and down the left hand side, and something we saw with Brad Halliday as well again yesterday. Yeah, he's just a fantastic player to have, and when someone can play so many positions, and when you're getting a lot of injuries like we are at the moment, obviously Vidane Oliver's still out, and then obviously you've got Liam Rydalge and now Oyegoke, who's definitely in doubt, and there's a few more in and around and players that aren't fit. And I think it's such an important player to have when you can play multiple positions that you can cover and kind of offer as maybe 3 players in one that can slot in when needed. So yeah, fantastic performance again from him today. One of the few positives, like I said, and yeah, I'm very happy that he got given a new contract now.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I didn't even mention. I had an injury to Liam Rydalge. I think they said it was a concussion, and then Oyegoke, it turns out it was a shoulder injury. I said in the vlog yesterday, make sure you go check that out if you haven't heard of that. It looked like he broke his arm, but it was some sort of a shoulder injury, which was unfortunate. When I saw it was Oyegoke coming on, I was a little bit concerned by that, but like you said, I don't think he actually did too bad. We'll move on then to box number 2, and we are going to be giving a red box here to Andy Cook, and it's disappointing because I absolutely love the man, but it's a number of times now we've had to speak about he just doesn't really get involved too much. And this is kind of about Tyler Smith as well. They were both completely anonymous. Obviously, Smith scores our goal, and it's a really nice, well-worked goal. Great finish from Smith. He should score one just before he does actually get his goal. But Cook, while I know he's getting a lack of service, his overall play is really poor. There are a number of times in the first half and the second half where he'd maybe bring the ball down, then his pass just wasn't really there. You know, his end product wasn't quite there. And I don't think he actually had a shot or a real chance to grasp at. And that's why I do think it's maybe a little bit harsh giving him red, but comparing it to some of the other boxes we're going to give out, I think you've got to give Cook a red. And this could be a red box for a number of other players. You know, there were a number of really disappointing performances, but Cook again was just so disappointing and underwhelming. And I still think he is our biggest goal threat, but I think the quicker Oliver is back fit and available for selection, that's when we'll see the best from Andy Cook, because it'll really send the rocket up his backside. And I do, like I say, feel a little bit sorry for him because he's not really getting much service now in front of goal, but he's then got to either create the space for other players, or he's got to try and find a way to get them opportunities. Sometimes you've got to make something out of nothing. And Andy Cook is not really that type of striker. He's much more, he does rely on services, and the crosses into the box were really, really poor yesterday. I think Halliday, I've been a big fan of him so far this season, but going forward, his crosses were poor. Poynton wasn't really putting many balls into the box. Edbe barely even got near the box to do that. Obviously, Ricardo or Yugo kid didn't really do it. And then Gilead was more trying to cut in and shoot. So when you cutting in on your stronger foot, crossing it in from that way is much harder to do. And Barrow obviously came in their 5-3-2 formation. They've got a very, very good game plan, and it works very well. You can see why Pete Wild has had a lot of success at Barrow so far. They're sitting in their low block with the big three centre halves, you know, the defensive wing backs as well, and they just defend a lot of crosses coming into the box. Tyler Smith was not really stretching them in behind because of how low and deep they were playing, and the space wasn't really there for Andy Cook. He had at all times one or two defenders on him, and even just not the general build-up play. When a ball go long towards Cook, it was very rare that he was winning it, or when he wouldn't then be able to get into the box in time for the cross to come into the box. So I was quite disappointed with Andy Cook yesterday, and that is again why I've had to give him, unfortunately, another red box.
Yeah, it's just such a surprise to see. You know, last season, if we continued this series or did the series last season, I think Andy Cook would get a green box nearly every single week, and he's had more red than green boxes this season. I don't think it's any coincidence that when Andy Cook's out of form and barely even showing anything in the games and being anonymous, that we sit 18th in the league table. I don't think that's any coincidence whatsoever. And I think I agree with you. He's definitely our biggest goal threat. And when he's not performing, the team just doesn't seem to be performing. And he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and you know, it's quite a lot of expectation. You know, you've had 4 different managers to impress, and there's all the talk about scoring getting 40 goal contributions last season, not quite replicating it. And I've heard somewhere that he's having issues with his back and he's getting injections to play, and I definitely wouldn't disagree with it. He definitely looks like he's injured, and he's just slow, sluggish. And I didn't even realise he were playing, to be fair. At half the time, it looks like Tyler Smith was a lone player up front at times, and it almost seemed like we were down to 10 men for the majority of that match. And it is very concerning when it's not just this week, or it's not a fluke. It seems to be every single week now that Andy Cook just doesn't seem to be performing at the standards that he was, and it's not even performing up to the standards. It is nowhere near good enough for a striker for any club in this division, let alone Bradford City. And it just doesn't seem to be clicking for Andy Cook. And like you said, the quicker that Vidane Oliver comes back, the better. And I think even the quicker that January comes, the better, because we definitely need another front man in the building. Matt Derbyshire, although he did look quite energetic when he came in, which I was quite surprised with. He's simply not good enough for this level anymore, and simply not good enough for the ambitions that we have this season, which is promotion, which is definitely far-fetched. And I do think we are slowly sleepwalking into a relegation battle. We're just as close as we are to the relegation as we are to the playoffs, and it's only going to get worse if we keep performing like this. So I think we definitely need to kind of wake up a bit and realise that this is not going to be a walkover this season. We definitely could be in a relegation battle sooner rather than later if players don't pick up. Like Andy Cook, he's such an important player to the way we play football, and when he's kind of out the question, I'm not sure who Graham Alexander will look and turn to, because there doesn't seem to be many goal scorers in the team at all. So the quicker that January comes, I think the better for everyone. I think Graham Alexander's got to bring in his own players and possibly even look at a new recruitment man. I think he needs to kind of make the club as if it was his own, and almost take the reins and build everything how he wants to make it, and really have a good positive January window, because it doesn't seem to be many positives coming from the forward line, and it needs to be addressed quickly.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. That Stephen Gent is a man who needs to depart Bradford City. You know, if Alexander is here for the long term, and, you know, there's clearly issues at the football club, Stephen Gent is one of them. And he did an article, I think it was with the TNA, when he just joined the club, and he said he'd take all the responsibility for every signing, good, bad, or whatever. And there's certainly been a lot more bad signings than good, unfortunately. And the squad is obviously far too big. There's going to be, I would say, probably at least 10 departures in that January transfer window. And yeah, I think if Alexander is going to be here for the long term, I certainly think he does need to look at a different recruitment man, whether that's just Stephen Gent, whether that's the scouts as well, whatever it is. There's been a number of players who are just simply not good enough to play for Bradford City at this moment in time. But we'll move on then to box number 3, and it's a yellow box for Jamie Walker, a man who had a lot of influence on all 3 goals in the game. Obviously, the first goal, it's down his side. He doesn't track his man well enough. He doesn't stop the cross well enough as well. That is something that I've seen so much of Bradford City this season. We don't work hard enough to stop crosses coming into the box. When the ball's obviously into the box, Stubbs loses his man and it's disappointing. And Lewis, it goes right under him. And again, it's a really, really disappointing goal to concede. Alexander said I think he said it really annoyed him that we conceded so early on. And when you've 20, 30 seconds, whatever it is, into a new manager's ear at the football club, you simply have to be much more switched on than that. And Walker, for me, needed to do a lot better. It's not like it was a 90th minute, he was blowing. It's inside the first 30 seconds of the game and he's jogging. He doesn't work hard enough, in my opinion, to stop that cross. And obviously he gets the assist for our goal. That is something we've been asking from Jamie Walker so far this season, is for him to get more goal contributions. And he was really nice play from him. I think obviously he started out as the left midfielder, and then when Gilead went to left back, Walker actually played central midfielder, and I thought he had a really, really good game there. It was the most I've probably seen Jamie Walker involved in a game, certainly recently as well. I think that could actually be his position going forward. I think it really, really did suit him playing in that central midfield role alongside Richie Smallwood, because he's got that bite and aggression that you need to play in central midfield in a 4-4-2, but he's obviously got a lot of quality on the ball. And their second goal, the third goal in the game, the shot obviously comes in. He kind of partially blocks it, but unfortunately the block is right into the path of George Ray, who then has a tap in and is able to stab home. So that's why it's yellow, because obviously great assist for him, and I thought overall he had a pretty decent game, but he should certainly be doing a lot better with both their goals. And I'm not just saying it is all on Jamie Walker. You know, Stubbs should pick up Telford, Lewis should do better for the first goal. The second one, Edbe's got to work harder to stop the cross. Taylor, if he's not going to head it away, should probably just leave it, in my opinion. There's no point heading it onto the back post. And then obviously Walker, his block should be a little bit better. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Walker for the second goal, but certainly for the first one, I think he could have done a lot better. Overall, though, I thought he was quite impressive in central midfield. A little bit anonymous on that left wing, and that's why I've gone with the yellow box for Jamie Walker.
Yeah, I think that partnership with Richie and Jamie definitely works well. I think Richie's more of a conservative player, whereas Jamie Walker likes to attack more and get forward. He's a bit more energetic, and I think that definitely could be a partnership that works going forward, because I definitely don't see Edbe getting back into the side. And, you know, with Patterson still in doubt for a few more weeks, there's things to be experimented with. And obviously Graham Alexander's coming in, it's relatively unknown. So I think whatever's been working in training on what he's seen in the games, we could probably see going forward. Whereas if it was Mark Hughes, he might want to stick out with something that he knows for a while. And I think with the new manager, it's quite good to kind of test things out a little bit and just see which works best and stuff like that. But yeah, on the face value of it, it has given away 2 goals, and it probably could have been avoided. But I think with the Tyler Smith chance that he had, where he somehow managed to miss and the keeper made a great save, it was a brilliant ball into the box, and he did really cause a lot of problems for Barrow in that first half, running down to the byline and getting balls in the box, and obviously got the assists as well. So I think without giving them goals away, I think, there could be a doubt that he was a green box, but I feel like at the end of the day, them mistakes have ended up costing us points. And, it's definitely not his best game in a Bradfordshire, but it's not his worst either. He's quite energetic, and obviously me and you've been talking about how we want a little bit more statistics and goals and assists wise from Jamie Walker, and I think he's definitely improved a little bit on that this season, and I can probably see this being one of his best seasons statistically for Bradford City. But I would like to see a little bit more from Walker in terms of goals and assists wise. But yeah, a player who's been pretty good for us recently. Obviously got the consolation goal against Wickham and has looked really, really good in the last few games. So I think he's set the standard now. Jamie Walker is a well-established first-team player, and he was a marquee signing when he was brought in January. And I think, another player like Andy Cook is a star man, and he's got, big shoes to fill and quite big expectations. But I feel like, as opposed to Andy Cook, he's kind of living up to him, and he's a very, very good player and a very valued asset at Bradford City. And let's just hope he doesn't get any more injuries, because I fear if he does get another injury, that he could be on his way out. I don't know if anyone saw the post he put on Instagram about removal companies in Bradford, and I'm not really sure what that's about, but I'm not going to read too much into it. You know, I'd love to keep Jimmy Walker around, but he is on a big pay. And, you know, if he keeps getting injured, then it could be a massive issue because he is a key player and a key part of the team. So, yeah, there's lots of things to be thinking about in January. I don't know how it's going to go, but Walker's a key player, and I hope he doesn't get injured.
Yeah, I think the thing with Walker is I don't think the Instagram post was anything too serious to look into, in my opinion. I don't think after spending 3 days with Alexander, unless he's on like 20 grand a week, we're suddenly going to then just get rid of him. So he probably just is moving house. But we'll move on then to box number 4. We spoke about him briefly there. It's a red box for Emmanuel Edbe. And again, it could have been a number of other players who got this red box, but we have to talk about Edbe again and his lack of impact on the game. Obviously, he came on when Daniel Ugoke came off. He played actually on the left side of midfield. And I think I was surprised by that because Edbe said himself his best position is a central midfielder. And again, that's why I feel a little bit harsh maybe giving him a red box, because if he's playing him on the left rather than the centre, are you getting the best out of Emmanuel Edbe? But his performance was just so lacklustre and so frustrating again, because we've seen it in that couple of games where he was scoring goals that there is clearly a good player in Edbe, but he just doesn't bring it out consistently enough. The amount of times where he just loses the ball sloppily, instead of just finding the pass, he's trying to take on 2-3 players. He just doesn't have enough quality, in my opinion. It is a real shame. And the fact we've paid a fee for Edbe is a little bit of a concern, because I don't rate Edbe. If I'm honest, I think with his better players, you know, Adam Wilson showed more in his 5-minute appearance at left back than Edbe did all game, really. And yeah, it was quite frustrating. I think the thing that sums up Edbe the most is he had a volley maybe 12, 14 yards out, completely unchallenged, had to at least hit the target, and he went for pure power, blasted it straight over the bar. And it was so frustrating because, like I say, that was a really, really good chance. We needed that to go in. It was towards the end of the game, and he just had absolutely no composure. You need some good football and IQ in that situation, and he just didn't. The blood rushed to his head. He blasted the ball. It went nearly into the top of the cup. It was an absolutely awful finish, and that is the problem with Edbe. He's just a little bit... I think the best way to describe him is a headless chicken. You know, there was at one point in the first half where he went on a little bit of a dribble. I think it was the first half. Went on a little bit of a dribble, went past, I think, 2 or 3 players, and then played a really nice pass. And I was like, where have we seen this Edbe from? And then later on in the game, he gets the ball, tries to take 2 players on, lose it far too easy, and just stands there, turns around. I think he was complaining at Gilead. And that's the thing with Edbe. He's just not consistent enough. And I don't mind as a winger if you're going to try things and try to be creative, but he just doesn't come off enough for Edbe. I don't think he's quick enough to be a winger. I don't think he's agile enough. He much more prefers to try and use his strength. And I think that is a good positive to Edbe. But in my opinion, I like my wingers to be quick, tricky, skillful. And I think Harry Chapman would have been the much better option, in my opinion. And unfortunately, it is another red box for Emmanuel Edbe.
Yeah, it's disappointing because, like we said, like I keep saying with Edbe, you know, there was lots of promise with him in the preseason that he got brought in. You know, he did really well against a few championship sides, and we just don't seem to see that Edbe on enough occasions. And I think the tweet that got released by, I think, Bantam's Banter, or Bantam Vlogs, it was like, Edbe is a liability with a hidden of Messi, and I think that perfectly sums up Edbe as a player. I think he doesn't show his qualities on enough occasions. And I think, to be fair to him, when he came on, I think late in that first half, he looked really, really good on the ball, and it was really, really nice to see. He got some brilliant passes off, brilliant skillfully wise, and I'm not sure if he played centre mid for that, but in the second half, he seems to push further out wide onto like a winger position, and it was just dreadful to watch, absolutely dreadful to watch. I mean, he just doesn't seem to have the agility for a winger. He loses the ball on way too many occasions, and while there were a few good spells, there were more mistakes than not. He seems to want to pass it sideways rather than take a player on half the time. I think there's times, what frustrated me, not just Edbe yesterday, but how many times are we just going to pass it around on the edge of the box and try and walk the ball in the back of the net, just have a shot. I mean, it's just so frustrating just seeing us trying to pass it around the box and not take a shot, because there was opportunities where I think it might have been Gilead who took a shot and it tested the keeper and he's put it behind for a corner, and then Gilead had another shot at the near post. Keeper spilled it and he went out for another corner. If we just have shots, you never know what's going to happen in this league. There are a lot of scrappy goals that win you games, deflections, dodgy pitches, dodgy bounces, dodgy bobbles. even dodgy goalkeeping, and things will happen from it. Goals, corners, set pieces, free kicks, penalties, anything can happen when you hit that ball. And we just didn't take our chances, and we were attacking enough. We didn't want to shoot the ball. And I think that is something that is a bit of a problem with the new manager. You seem a little bit nervous to try new things. And I think under Kevin McDonald, there wasn't really much pressure. He was a player, a teammate, and you could have shots and you had that freedom. But whereas with this new manager, we just seemed to be a bit nervous and play with a handbrake on. And it was frustrating to see from a neutral fan base point of view. But yeah, Edbe was really, really poor yesterday. And I'm not really sure what Alexander would think after that. And there are limited chances for players now. We can't really be affording to be dragging players along with us and carrying them. If you're not good enough, you simply aren't good enough, and that has to be addressed in January. We've really got to sit through and look at players. Are you good enough? If not, you've got to go through the door, and we've got to bring someone else in, because there's no time for slacking, especially when we're in position that we are. We're 18th in the league. We're closer to relegation than we are to the playoffs, and that is not a position that we anticipated or should be in. So there's serious questions that need to be asked in January. If you're not good enough, you need to go. And if you are good enough, you need to stay. You need to prove what you're worth. And I don't think Edbe is that player, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the thing with attacking players, and Edbe is included in that, is if you're going to be greedy, then at least let it end with some sort of a shot on target. Try and test the keeper, because Tyler Smith is always going to follow them sort of attempts in. But Edbe will lose the ball inside his own half, trying to take on two players when he should just make a simple pass. And not just Edbe, that goes for a number of other players, but Edbe certainly highlights that frustration for me quite a lot. We'll move on then to our penultimate box. It is another green box. This time it is for Richie Smallwood. I thought there were a few good performances yesterday, but Small was definitely one of them, in my opinion. Again, I thought he really led the team like a leader. I don't think it was too much of a surprise to see Smallwood maintain the captain armband, like I mentioned in my match preview. I think if Alexander was to change captain mid-season, I think that certainly could unsettle the dressing room. And Smallwood, again, battled hard in the midfield, showed some quality at times with some nice passing. And overall, I just thought it was a good holding midfielder performance, like we'd expect to see it from Richie Smallwood. I thought, like we mentioned earlier, he had a really, really good partnership with Jamie Walker in there. And overall, it's had a really good game. There were a couple of decent free kicks that he put into the box that we didn't quite get onto the end of. And that is a big concern for me. Our lack of goals from set pieces. They're so big in football, especially at this level, and we never ever look like scoring from them. I know we weren't the biggest team yesterday, and Barrow a big physical side, but every corner went short. I'm pretty sure the free kicks we put into the box, we never really looked like we wanted to attack them, and I think we were aiming them to the wrong players, in my opinion. But Small, for me, I thought just had a really solid performance in there. There wasn't many good performances to highlight from yesterday, but Small, I think, again, was one of them. Obviously, you want to impress Alexander. It sounds like there was some sort of a fallout between Small and Hughes towards the end of his tenure. But Small, for me, since he's come back into the side under McDonald and now under Alexander as well, I think he has been really impressive in that central midfield role, and I've been really impressed with Small, so that is why I've had to go with a green box.
Yeah, I think last season I was one of Small's biggest critics, and I definitely didn't think he was captain material. But this season he's definitely shown his worth, and he seems to be strength on strength every week, and it was a true captain's performance. And what I liked about Smallwood is what I've criticised him a lot for in the past is being too conservative, passing the ball backwards. But there were lots of times that I wouldn't be able to count on both hands of Smallwood demanding that ball and looking to pass it forward, switching it. His passing was absolutely unbelievable. The way he can pick out a pass from that far away, it was unbelievable. And that's exactly what I expected from a championship midfielder, and not just a championship midfielder, a championship captain who consistently plays. And I think another one who had the bar really set high when you come in from Hull City as the captain and you join a League Two side, there's a lot of expectations for you to perform, and I don't think Richie really lived up to the expectations, and I definitely think he would probably agree with that he wasn't his best. But this season, I can definitely say that Rich Small's an established player in this team now, and I definitely think he deserves the captain's armband. And it was important for Richie Small to get it right on the pitch with the new manager coming in. He probably wouldn't have wanted him to thought about changing the captaincy, and I definitely think he deserves that captain's armband. He was vocal, he was tough tackling. Him and Jamie really worked well in that midfield. Some fantastic tackles going in, some brilliant passes, and it was just a great overall performance from Richie Smallwood, and exactly what I expect from him. And that has to be the standard now as a Bradford City club captain. You've got to be putting in performances week in, week out, and you've got to be, as energetic as you was and not give up until the end of the game. And yeah, I'm really, really happy that Richie Smallwood finally seems to be clicking into place.
I think when you compare where Smallwood was after the Morecambe game and the fan base's thoughts after the Morecambe game, because of, I think it was their second goal where he just completely gave up and did not look interested, to where he is now, I think it's a massive contrast. It's light and day, and it is really nice to see him finally growing into being a Bradford City central midfielder. We'll move on then to our final box. It wouldn't really be a six things that we learned if we didn't speak about the manager. So Graham Alexander's debut on the six things that we learned. We've gone with a yellow box. Now, there was some interesting selections in the starting 11, in the squad. I thought tactically, considering the injuries that we had to cope with, I thought it wasn't awful. You know, he's only had not even a week on the training ground, but I think we all knew Barrow was going to come and play a low block and defend, and it was really frustrating to give them that early goal, but I don't think there's really anything Alexander could have done about conceding such an early goal. And I thought the reaction to conceding wasn't too bad, but we just never really looked like scoring. We didn't really create too many clear-cut chances. We had a lot of the ball and a lot of possession and a lot of momentum, but we never really troubled Barrow all too much, and that was quite disappointing for me. But I think some of the decisions that he made throughout the game were certainly not what I would have gone with. And I'm not saying, I'm a better manager than Alexander, but, Ryan Sparks said when Alexander was appointed at the press conference, he was really impressed with his analysis of the squad so far. And to see players like Taylor given the start, who, while I don't think he's been too bad since that Crawley game, MK Don's away was pretty poor. But apart from that, I don't think he's been awful. We have better centre-backs, in my opinion. And some of the substitution options, I'm not really too sure how players like Osadebe or Ugoke, Derbyshire get on there ahead of players like Oliver, who has been back in full training for, about 10 days now. I don't really too sure why he wasn't involved. McDonald, I think, would have been a good option to have off the bench. I'm sure that Rayhan Tulloch as well has looked lively at times. And I know there's only a certain number of options that you can have. And obviously you do need some different type of players in there. But yeah, it's been an interesting week, and I think Alexander could have done some better things. Obviously, I'm not going to give him a red box because it's his first game in charge, and a lot of these players probably won't be here in a year's 18 months' time, and we've got to give Alexander the time to build his squad, and I do think he's going to be a very honest man. There were a couple of times, well, I've probably say a lot of times in Mark Hughes' post-match interviews when you'd lose a game and you just wouldn't agree with really a lot of what he said. And maybe that comes with time, because at the start you maybe do give the manager the benefit of the doubt. But Alexander, for me, I was really impressed with how he conducted himself in his post-match interview. I thought he really spoke the truth, and I really agreed with a lot of what he said in that. And overall, I'm going with the yellow box for Alexander. Certainly not the worst start in the world, but obviously disappointing to start with a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even recall a time where a manager's come in and conceded inside 25 seconds. I mean, it kind of just shows the curse of Bradford City. And I think when that happens, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails. You might want to look to alter things. I definitely don't think it helped anything, and I think that was a massive factor in the game. Obviously, I know they've scored, but the timing of the goal was awful. I mean, there was fans that wanted to, the chanting, and it just completely went silent, and it was absolutely just. And you could hear the ball being kicked, and that should never be happening from where I'm sat. I'm sat pretty high up in the stands, and you should not be able to hear the ball being passed around, and you should be hearing chanting. And the wind was just completely taken out of our sails, and we didn't really look to create much in that first half. And it kind of really, really affected us. And who knows if that goal didn't go in, or it maybe even went in a little bit later. Who knows what the end result is, but it was a massive factor in the game, and it was something that could have been avoided as well. And one thing that I will comment on is like the Graham Alexander. The substitutions were really, really, really late, and obviously I understand that the circumstances where he's got two injuries inside the first, I think it was first 40 minutes or so, and that definitely didn't help. But you've still got one more slot to make three substitutions, and you could have even used half time as another one to make a substitution. And I think they were way too late to impact the game. Adam Wilson probably would have been better brought on later. And yeah, I hope this isn't a recurring thing. I read something about Graham Alexander, and it does seem to be a common theme where he does make subs way, way too late. And maybe it was just the way he saw the game. Obviously, I haven't got my UEFA license. I'm no manager, but from the way I saw it, I think the substitutions definitely would have impacted quite earlier in the game. I don't think bringing players on 85th minute is really going to affect the game. You've got to give them at least 15, 20 to try and come into the game and grow into it and see if they can make an impact. And that is something that I will comment on. And then the selection again, if I was Jonathan Tomkinson, I'd be calling David Wagner today and I'd be saying, what on earth am I doing here and how am I not getting a start? I want to go somewhere where I can play football. There was no need for Matty Platt to be on the bench. There was 2 defensive substitutions due to injury. He didn't even get a look in, whereas Jonathan Tomkinson, whilst we've not even barely seen him, I know for a fact he's better than Ash Taylor. I just don't understand why he's not getting a look into the team. There doesn't seem to be any injuries. He's had international duty with the USA youth team and the Olympic team. It baffles me how he's not even included in the matchday squad and how he's not getting a look in over some of these defenders. I hope to see him next game. I hope to see him at Notts County. I think that could definitely be a game where he can come in. Obviously, at Notts County, you've got a really, really good attack. You've got Macaulay Langstaff and you've got some really, really quick attackers. Jody Jones, I think he's one of the top assisters in the top 5 divisions in England. And they've got a really good attack, and I think Jonathan Tomkinson, that's a perfect game for him to come in. He's a really, really tall player, and Jody Jones is going to look to get balls in the box, and I think that's a perfect time for him to come in and really prove himself to Graham Alexander. Yeah, I'm really baffled as to why he's not getting in the team, and I think there was a few tactical issues that obviously need to be addressed, but he's not even been here a week. There's not really much time to kind of put his philosophy in how he wants to play football, so I'm a firm believer in Graham Alexander. I will give him as much time as the club gives him, and I can't really be pushing a manager out the door anymore. I need to just back someone. Obviously, I back the manager and I back the players, but obviously, I think we know how my feelings are towards the club. There's a certain part of the club which I don't back, and I'm very, very vocal about that. And yeah, I don't think it's time for chopping and changing. I think we've got to give Graham Alexander exactly what he wants, and leave him and just. Hopefully he comes good for Bradford and just give him as much time as he needs to try and get us out of this division.
One thing I will add on top of the substitutions thing that you mentioned there, Alexander actually said in his post-match interview that Ricardo came off as a concussion sub. So we actually had one more opportunity. And obviously we didn't know that at the time. Ricardo was holding his nose. So I thought maybe he'd broken his nose potentially. I wasn't really too sure. But if we had that other sub available, then why not bring a Harry Chapman on for one of the centre-halves and just go for it? Because at that point, when you're 2-1 down with 5, 10, 15 minutes to go, why not throw one of the best wingers on at the football club? We've got a lot of wingers, but a lot of them are not very good. But Chapman in a 1v1 situation would definitely beat his man, maybe win a penalty, get a ball into the box. I think he would have been a better option to come on for Edbe. And I certainly think if Ricardo was a concussion sub, that obviously meant we still had one more opportunity and one more sub available to do. I don't understand why Chapman didn't come on, in my opinion, because I do think he is a decent player. While last season he lacked the goals and assists, obviously he's a winger who was playing as a number 10 for the majority of last year, then spent the second half of it on the bench when Walker came back from injury. But overall, obviously very disappointing to start out with a defeat. Life under Graham Alexander does start out, unfortunately, with a 2-1 defeat against the good Barrow side. I must give Barrow credit. They've got a system and a game plan, and I don't know if that's a thing where they just come to Valley Parade. I don't know if it's a away tactic. I don't know if that's how they play every game, but whenever they come to Valley Parade, especially over the last couple of seasons, they've played like that. It's disappointing, it's frustrating, it's hard to break down, but until we get out of this division, a lot of teams who will come here will park the bus, will put every man behind the ball, and it's effective because we really do struggle to break them sort of teams down. And I hope Alexander can do what Hughes did in finding a way to break these sort of teams down. Obviously, when Patterson and Oliver come back from their respective injuries and they're back available for selection, that will be massive for us. But we'll leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for us. If you could try and 80 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. Let us know down below your thoughts on our 6 talking points from today's video. Go check out yesterday's matchday vlog as well if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one. Peace.